Welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge, and this is your latest Manchester United news. As unbelievably, we've had a big drop from Germany that Thomas Tuchel snubbed the Manchester United job. He actually was very advanced, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe wanted him, that Tuchel was going to take the job, and then decided he didn't want it for one specific reason. That would make Man United snubbed by Tuchel and Erik Ten Hag, if he wasn't in a position that was already undermined, the knowledge that you're second best and there's a manager out there that could have took your job would be absolutely incredible. We'll get into where this is coming from. We'll get into those quotes. We'll get into your thoughts. I mean, is it bollocks? Is it just total fantasy? Or actually, does it make a little bit of sense? Because even as somebody that was absolutely determined for Ten Hag to stay, I remember that 4 or 5 weeks, well, it felt like 4 or 5 weeks, that period from the FA Cup final to the backing of Ten Hag when he was on holiday, it just did feel like something else was going on. I'd put my hands up and say, as much as I don't want to believe this, I remember that time vividly, and it did feel like it. It did feel like something was going on. Now, whether it was as bad that they'd actually offered it to Tuchel and wanted Tuchel and then he said no, so they went with Ten Hag, I don't know. But I think we know that we're talking to people definitely. Was Ten Hag second best? I don't know. We can talk about that. Also want to talk about Bruno, how we unlock the best of Bruno. And I think Liverpool probably taught us a lesson on how to do that last week. And also some good news about Lenny Yoro. And of course, it's Friday night, so get your comments in and have your say as always. I've been down the pub, I've got my can ready, it's a Friday night and I hope you're all doing well. Got some free memberships to give out as well tonight as well, so don't let me forget about that. In fact, Simon's already started on a Friday. If you want to get involved, it's the end of the week, you can gift memberships if you're a member. Lovely stuff there from Simon. I'll be doing some in a minute. And Kian said, I thought it was common knowledge that Erik Ten Hag was only kept because Ineos were left with no other choice. Everyone else rejected United, says Kian. It's definitely not common knowledge, Kian, and it's definitely not true. We were sold the story from Ineos that Erik Ten Hag is the Man United manager because they did a strategic review that they would have done with anybody and decided that they already had the best candidate. That's the common knowledge. That's the story that's been sold. I don't think they offered the job to Pochettino and Southgate and Thomas Frank and, Sam Allardyce and everybody, and then, everybody said no. But this is what has been said. Pitbull has gifted a membership, by the way. So this has come from Bild, which is obviously a German outlet. They're saying that Thomas Tuchel had reservations about Man United's approach to transfers. Although he's on the brink of accepting the position, the club's framework ultimately deterred him. German commentator Marcel Ralf shared this with the publication. I would have bet a lot of money that Tuchel would replace Ten Hag. I recently had another conversation with someone who was very close to that deal. It was pretty far along. And almost in agreement. As far as the squad is concerned, the considerations were different. Tuchel said pretty much at the finish line, I'm not doing that. I won't do that to myself again. That I go to a club and then things come from outside. Under the guidance of Ashworth and technical director Jason Wilcox, United were active in the summer transfer window. And the club valued Ten Hag's input, but obviously he didn't have total control. So what this story is basically saying is that Thomas Tuchel was close to the finish line of becoming Manchester United's next manager in the summer and ultimately decided against it because he realised that he couldn't work in another football club where there was input from outside on signings, and he didn't want to do that. I mean, we've got an active poll going here. 60% of you don't believe it, 40% of you do. I haven't really thought about it enough to tell you whether I believe it or not. I mean, I will do. I just wanted to wait for the show to sort of work through it. I've been trying to do everything else other than think about it for the last 45 minutes. So extreme. I've been watching Bluey with Seb, but it's a good show. But you know what? All I will say is I don't know whether we'll ever get the truth on this. I don't know what purpose it serves Man United to ever say that they offered the job to Tuchel and had to go with Ten Hag, because that would be absolutely horrific. I don't think that United would bother even commenting about it. Of course, people close to Thomas Tuchel are going to make out that he rejected the United job because it makes him a more attractive proposition when he wants to come back into football. So I don't think we'll ever understand anyway the truth. And therefore, I think it just causes more issues for Erik Ten Hag because he's already getting it from all angles. And now there is that potential that, he'd been given the job. He'd already been humiliated, embarrassed after the FA Cup final. I mean, I'll never forget what Alan Shearer and Gary Lineker did to him straight after winning a trophy. I thought it was absolutely disgusting. I think they're very lucky to have just had that swept under the carpet and carry on doing Match of the Day and their podcasts and everything, and everyone still kisses their arse. I still think it's singularly one of the worst bits of punditry I've ever seen in my life, where an underdog manager professionally beats Pep Guardiola in a final, one of the best teams the Premier League's ever had, and then he spends the first few minutes of his interview basically being told he's going to lose his job. So Erik Ten Hag, whether you like him or not, was humiliated after the FA Cup on national TV. He was then humiliated by Manchester United, who didn't back him and left him hanging out to dry for 2 or 3 weeks. And then he ended up getting the job with some very good positive statements from Manchester United about this was the guy they wanted. And then they followed that up with signings that he wanted. So I think we'd all moved on from it. This just takes us back there again and throws us back into that period between the FA Cup and Ineos deciding they're wanting Ten Hag. And honestly, I look at it and I go, look, that journalist or commentator or whoever in Germany could be talking the truth. He could be talking total shit. But honestly, that gap between the FA Cup final and them giving Ten Hag the job, does anybody know how long that was? Was it 2 weeks, 3 weeks, week and a half? Felt like a month. I mean, I was down in Brixham, not in London, in Devon on holiday, wasn't I? I remember doing those streams and every day it was like, what's going on? What's going on? But we've had a very, very busy summer, haven't we? We won the FA Cup. Then we had that period of time waiting to see what was happening with the manager. Then we had the Euros. Then we've had all the signings. Then the season has started. It feels a long time ago, but when I put myself back in that, I can do quite vividly. And honestly, I don't 100% stand here in front of you and say it's completely nonsense that they wanted Tuchel to take the job and he refused it. I'd love to think that that it didn't happen. I really, really would. But I can see a scenario where Sir Jim Radcliffe did have conversations with Tuchel. They did want him to take the job. And then he just decided, I don't really want to come to a club where I'm going to have a structure above me, telling me what I can and can't do. And Tuchel's contract probably would have been a bit different to Ten Hag's because United had to honour Ten Hag's veto. Would Tuchel have got a veto? So I can see it being true that Thomas Tuchel was very close to getting the job and decided against it, in which case we were snubbed. And in which case Ten Hag would be second choice, at least. But I can also see a scenario where Ineos decided that Ten Hag was the guy to stick with and that Tuchel was a bit too much of a risk. I can't answer the question. Honestly, I can't. I choose to believe that Ineos assessed everything and decided that Tuchel was probably too much of a risk over going with Ten Hag in year 3 and just seeing what happens. Because they can always go for Tuchel next summer. They can always go for Southgate if they want to. Whereas you can't bring Ten Hag back. So I choose to believe that. I choose to believe that it's not true that Tuchel snubbed us and we went with Ten Hag. I choose to believe that Ineos assessed the situation, got very close to offering Tuchel the job, but decided it was a risk and they'd rather just see what can be achieved with Ten Hag before they decide to change manager. But that's just me choosing to choose the option that's best for me. I am not sitting here telling you, oh, I never do, but I'm not sitting here telling you, believe me, I know it's true that Tuchel didn't snub us. I genuinely don't. And what I will say is, if he did snub us, I stand here and say, if he did snub us, we've got a manager that's under massive pressure and now people think he might have been second choice. What do you think that does to the playing staff? What do you think that does to the fan base? So it's problematic. And I tell you what, if I'm being completely honest, who is to blame for this? Ineos. Ineos are to blame for this, and we all knew it at the time. They never, ever, ever, ever should have done what they did. Never should have done what they did. They never should have left that period after the FA Cup to 2 weeks, leaving it up in the air. Because honestly, can you honestly tell me that Ten Hag was number one? Or can you honestly tell me that Tuchel snubbed it? Nobody can, because they left that area. And I think I said it at the time. When you're waiting that long to decide on Ten Hag, you probably should have got rid of him. I didn't want us to. I felt that was the mistake. But look, this will probably just be an international break story that gets lost very, very quickly when United are back. But it's certainly one that we don't need. Always felt more like keeping Ten Hag was to do with the PSR mixed with a lot of available quality managers who would submit to that structure. Firing him would cost more and take out of an already small budget. If a better manager was available, I think they would pull the trigger, says United Love. My United vlog is up, boys. We're Man United, says Cam. Where have you been, mate? What are you vlogging about? We haven't done anything for a week. Anyway, check it out, Cam. Hello, Mark from Canada. I'm still at work. Tuchel was put off by the structure where he won't be able to influence transfers and the culture, says Everyday Life Hacks. Yeah, we were just talking about that, yeah. Let me just get rid of this idiot in the chat. Might be a bit light on mods tonight. Always said he was the right choice for the Glazers, says Keel Robinson. And this is for Shallon, says, not sure why a new ownership looking at other managers is news. In any sport, new owners want their guy in key roles. Look how quickly Chelsea sacked Tuchel. The agenda by the media is disgusting, says this is for Shallon. I don't actually understand the point you're making. It sounds like a really great point, but I don't understand what you're trying to say. But some other people might have done. How can you possibly still be Ten Hag in, says Andrew Stanbridge. I don't think anybody wants to know that again, mate. I've explained it many times. Do you think Ineos would, of course, say that? They wouldn't say after 2 week long investigation we couldn't get who we actually wanted. No, I don't think they would say that, Kian. Pitbull Wilco, welcome to Members Club. Thank you very much. Olad, welcome. Olad says, happy birthday to me. Cheers. Well, cheers to you, Olad. Happy birthday. Many happy returns. These secret leaks were always coming after 2 losses, says Mario Franco as well. Thank you very much for that. Choose train spotting, says Tony. Ashworth loves Southgate. Southgate is unemployed. It's inevitable, says Jim the Rat Glazer. Well, with a name like that, I hope you're talking absolute shit. Look, nothing's changed on that sense. If Manchester United ever want to give Gareth Southgate the Manchester United job, I will be Gareth Southgate out from minute one. And I don't care whether people call it toxic. I mean, the reality is, I want Marcus Rashford and Antony and Maguire to play well for Man United when they play. I might not always want them to start, but when they play, I want them to do well. I don't actually dislike any United player. If they're on the pitch, I want them to do well. And it amazes me how many people get confused by that. They call it hate, when actually, all I ever hear is, in the case of Rashford, is he should be on the bench. Garnacho and Ahmad should start. But when he comes on, I don't think people would boo. They'd be like hoping he does well. So as far as I'm concerned, I do want some of these players to be dropped 100%. But if they come off the bench, I want them to do well. I don't want Antony to start, but if he comes on because Ahmad's tired, I want him to play well. But I'll tell you what, if you want toxicity, I don't care if I'm on my own. The second they give Gareth Southgate the job is the second I do a video every day saying get him out. I don't want him anywhere near Manchester United. There is not one slither of me that thinks I could be wrong on that, and there is not one slither of patience or empathy or sympathy or respect or whatever you want to call it. Absolutely never in a million years will I ever get on board with Southgate. I got on board with Fellaini, I got on board with Matic, I got on board with Lukaku. I didn't want them, but I got on board with it. I gave him a chance. If Southgate ever gets the Man United job, I'll be booing from the start. And I don't even believe in booing, but I will not, under any circumstances, be patient with that appointment. That will be me. Ineos out, Ashworth out, Southgate out, Glazers out, the lot. I just will not put up with it. And I don't really care what anybody else thinks about, oh, that's really childish or petulant or whatever. I really don't care. I know what I think. I know what I feel. I've watched him manage England for what feels like 100 years, and he's absolutely bloody shit. he's a politician, and he's a nice guy who the players like, but his tactics are absolutely shite. And his legacy as England manager is fucking up a golden generation. Anyway, back to the United stand. All this after a misplaced pass, Casemiro. The media do talk some crap. They're boring and still upset they never got their golden boy Pochettino, says Wayne Finnegan. We need a new narrative. It's the players. Ten Hag in, says Ndeb. And we won the first game of the season when under scrutiny. Got so unlucky against Brighton, who held Arsenal, then lost to a good Liverpool side. Why overreact, says Boxing Freaks. I think people overreact, mate, because people have an opinion. And I think that there's a lot of people who are unsure about keeping this manager. And when you lose 2 of your first 3 games, it just opens that door. I think that's what that's about. Do you think Erik Ten Hag will eventually change his tactics, says Grace Sheridan. This is for Shalin, says, haha, my bad for not making sense, Mark. I joined you drinking before the show. Cheers to you, mate. And to you, mate. Have a great evening. Glenn C says, it felt a bit strange that after saying they backed Ten Hag, the new contract was not a new contract at all, as all they did was activate the +1. Good point. Good point. And United Love says, always felt more like keeping Ten Hag. I've done that one, haven't I? I've definitely done that one. Andre says, Tuchel has an enormous ego. Maybe he did say no, but probably due to more than he admits. He's absolutely toxic and probably had unreasonable demands. Well, look, it's an interesting story, but I genuinely don't think it's true. I think Tuchel was leaking stuff throughout that 2-week period about the Man United job. He was leaking about the Man United job 2 months before the FA Cup final as well. So I don't actually believe it's true, but ultimately I don't think we'll ever know whether it's true or not, if I'm being honest. Keep your comments coming in. It's the Friday night show. I've got some memberships to give away. In fact, I'll start giving some away in a moment. But on a more positive note, Lenny Yoro, positive update on him. We've got a fantastic signing here with Lenny Yoro, by the way. I think when you sign a player and they get injured, it's very easy to forget what they're all about. But Real Madrid wanted this kid. He is a kid. He's only 18, and he's considered one of the best centre-backs up and coming in the world. So it's a very, very good signing that we haven't got. I mean, I know Ugarte is considered to be that, a very exciting signing. But as Anton Francis says, can't wait to see Yoro. He'll be a very, very welcome player to have back in the team, and we will be stronger for it. And I think the more players that we have that are good, the better Man United will be, funnily enough. Who would have thought that? But he is now walking freely without crutches, which is a really good, positive update. That came out today. He has been in the gym doing work. I would say, look, honestly, when we play Southampton on Saturday, a week on Saturday, you've got Southampton. A week later, it's Crystal Palace. So, yeah, Southampton. A week later, 1 week, it's Crystal Palace. 2 weeks after that, it's Spurs at home. Then 3 weeks after that, it's Aston Villa. And then there's another international break. So we play Aston Villa in 4 weeks. I think he's not back till after the international break. The next one. Because that would be 6 weeks. And I think if he's only just off crutches, walking freely, maybe he'll be back just before the end of the international break. Maybe he'll make the Villa game, but I don't think I don't think we'll see him until sort of mid-October, which is after the next international break. And I think that'll probably be the same with Malacia as well. But yeah, I mean, look, it's there are still a lot of players who are important to us that have got to come back. Luke Shaw, Lenny Yoro, Mason Mount, Malacia, Rasmus, of course. So there's still a lot of players that we need to come back. I can't wait for your Onana video, says Centimeters. I might actually put that out tomorrow. We'll see. I was so happy. I've done it. I just need to schedule it in. I was so... did everybody watch the video that Beth did earlier? Top 5 managers, Man United managers since Sir Alex. I can't remember what Beth did, but for me, Van Gaal 5th, Solskjaer 4th, Rangnick 3rd. For me, it's close between Ten Hag and Jose. Jose came second and won 2 trophies in 1 year. So 2 separate seasons. One, he came second. The year before that, he won the Europa League and the Carabao Cup. Whereas Ten Hag came third, won the Carabao Cup, and then the following year won the FA Cup. He's the only manager post Sir Alex to win a trophy 2 years in a row. Honestly, the football's been shit from all of them, and that's not a debate. Nobody's played good football, so I can't argue with that. It's Jose or Ten Hag. I think I'd just go with Jose at the moment, to be honest. I think I do. But it is close. Tuchel snubbed us. There is a God, says Andy Cheetham. And Sulai says, I was so happy when we got Ten Hag. That's why he letting me down hurt more. He sold us a lie. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Jose didn't have half of what Ten Hag spent, says JS. Is that a fair point? I mean, look, I find it hilarious that Man United fans talk about how much we spent. I've never known this in my life. I've never known it. It's the sort of thing a Liverpool fan says or a Man City fan. But God, there are Man United fans who talk about how much managers have spent. And I just don't understand it. I've never heard it in my life. I've never heard this argument of comparing Man United managers and how much they've spent. This is the sort of thing when you accuse Man City of being an oil club, they'll add up how much we've spent. But there are actually people in this chat who are going, oh, wow, he didn't have £600 million to spend. And I'm like, you're a Man United fan. And here's the mic drop moment. 2 years ago, when Ten Hag came into the job, I specifically remember we had about 22,000 people watching. And we were talking about the job. And the question that somebody in the chat said was, how much money is it going to take to close the gap on Man City? Now, considering we just finished with, 59 points? It was the season that Rangnick had finished it. Ten Hag, Ali had started it. 98% of you said at least a billion. At least a billion. And I completely agree. We've spent 600 million, and there is now this rhetoric of that means something. Like 600 million means what? What does that 600 million pounds mean? What do you actually think that means now? Because 2 years ago, it was only half of what was needed. Now it's suddenly a number that means something. What does it mean? What do you think that 600 million means? Because it definitely doesn't mean a Premier League title. It definitely doesn't mean fighting for a title. What 600 million pounds means is what it meant 2 years ago. It means it's a pathway, a journey to a billion to get to where we need to be. And you can disagree with that, please do. But 2 years ago, nobody disagreed with it, because I don't know how anybody can not think it would take at least a billion to get near Man City, because that's how far behind we were. And what does it even mean about comparing how much Mourinho spent to how much Ten Hag spent? Mourinho was gone because he didn't get the money in the third year. Ten Hag has had the money in the third year. So that's the difference. It's the structure above him. The Glazers let Mourinho down in the final year. We all know that. I would put Mourinho ahead of Ten Hag at the moment. But I do think it's close, because people forget, because they have red-tinted glasses, just how bad the end of Mourinho was and how it was going bad for it in the previous season as well. I mean, we got humiliated in the Champions League. Look, the bottom line is, top 5 since Sir Alex Ferguson left is not even, it's not a joyful moment, is it? It's not like looking at your best ever holiday snaps. It's not been a very good time. We're lucky to have some moments where we've actually won trophies, because, as I said, the football we've played has been absolutely shit across that 10-year period. I really don't think it was very good at all. I think when Solskjaer first came in, we were all singing Ollie's at the wheel, and for some reason everything was good. But you know what that was? That wasn't tactics. I know for a fact why. I mean, I think Solskjaer has... I was looking at this the other day. You know, Arne Slot has won his first 3 Premier League games. I was looking at what the record is for your first... In Premier League history, what your record is for a manager, how many wins in a row with their first few games. Because, like, obviously Slot's done 3. I think Pep did 6. I think Pep won 5 or 6 of his first Premier League games. So, but Ollie's got the record. And do you know why Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has the record? And do you know why we were singing Ollie's at the wheel and then it all fell apart when we gave him a contract? Because the players, and I don't know why people get so defensive about Mourinho. We all know what happened to Mourinho. The Glazers fucked him and the players really fucked him. Mourinho lost his job because the same thing happened to Mourinho, what happened to Chelsea. The players turned on him, stabbed him in the back and went behind his back to a board that backed the players over the manager. That's what happened to Mourinho. I remember it vividly. We were doing the United stand. The players did him big time. Down tools, stabbed him in the back, and the Glazers went with the players. That's why Mourinho lost his job. Then Solskjaer came in, and the players suddenly and miraculously started playing well because they'd spent the previous 2 months downing tools and stabbing Mourinho in the back. So when Ollie came in, suddenly these players do what a lot of players do. We'll start trying now. And they did for about 2 or 3 months. And then they got fed up of doing that. And the season fell apart. And we had a shit April and May. You say spend $1 billion. Zuteng says, you say spend $1 billion. Eric Ten Hag spent 616 and we've got worse. At this rate, your fraud manager needs 6 billion. Open your eyes, Mark. Zuteng, I'm not in the mood tonight for that word, so I'm not even going to respond to it. Look, this is, as I've said, I'm more than happy to debate with everybody. I've been down the pub. It's a Friday night. I'm in a good mood. I've told you what I think about that word. I'm just not going to communicate with people who use that fraud word anymore because it belongs with other people who are thick. It's an offensive word, and I'll tell you something for free. Eric Ten Hag is a better coach than you, and he's a better coach than me. You couldn't win the Eredivisie with Ajax, and you couldn't win the FA Cup for Man United against Man City. So calling him a fraud, it's just bloody childish, mate. And if you're part of this community or part of this football club, then you should have better words than that. It's a childish, immature word used by people who think they're Billy Big Bollocks by using an offensive word to get their point across. And all you're doing is exposing yourself as somebody that can't debate or make a decent point. So I'm not react, although I just have. If we need to spend about another 400 million, what positions do you think need to be upgraded for that 400 million to challenge, says Rory? I don't necessarily think we need another 400 million, mate. I'm just going back to 2 years ago when we were all sat there going, we're so far behind Man City, and people were like, you know, we need to spend money. And I think the general consensus was we needed about 13 players, and they were going to cost on average about £60 million each, which is going to take you, well, you know, close to $1 billion, isn't it? So the way I look at this United side now, we still need a left back. We still need another midfielder. We probably need another winger. We need a left-footed centre-back. I think we're 3 or 4 players away, really, based on what we've spent. I don't think we're worse off than we were. You know, I look back at that. I mean, you know, apart from the word fraud, Zuteng saying that we're worse off than when Ten Hag came in, without a shadow of a doubt, the team that Rangnick had is the most toxic United side I've ever known. And that's hilarious, considering I just spoke about another one that stabbed Mourinho in the back. We've had a few toxic United sides in the last 10 years, but without a shadow of a doubt, the team that Rangnick left for Ten Hag, and Rangnick said it himself, open heart surgery, is the most toxic United side I've ever known. So how can we be in a worse position than that? It was a shit team that had no backbone and was basically bitching at each other all the time, falling out, didn't give a shit about the club. There was more clicks than a bloody clicker. And it was a mess. I look at the United side now, and if Ten Hag was sacked tomorrow and Thomas Tuchel came in or Ruud van Nistelrooy took over, I think the team is good. It might not be playing well, but the team is not worse than it was 2 years ago under Rangnick. If you gave Rangnick this team, I think we'd be bloody brilliant. All right, I've got my reservations about Onana, but I'm very happy with Mazraoui and Delot. I'm very happy with Yoro and De Ligt and Martinez, and I don't mind Maguire as an option. Luke Shaw, obviously left back, is a bloody nightmare, but that's, you know, we've said that. Agate for me is a good signing. Casemiro shouldn't be here, but he might be able to do a job for us. Mainoo's fantastic. Collier coming through is very exciting. Mount's obviously injury prone. You know, Bruno, captain, very important to us. You've got Rashford, Garnacho, Ahmad, Antony. I think we need another winger. And then you've got Xerxes and Rasmus. So there are areas for improvement, but it's not terrible. It's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. And it's in a much better position than it was 2 years ago when you think about some of the players that were still here then. I agree with Keane's comments on Casemiro. Issue is the system, says United 1. I disagree. I think there is an amazing sympathy phase that happens in this fan base that I just don't understand. And it's been going on for years. You hit this low. I don't know whether it's a society thing. You know, you are literally bathing in shit. You stink, you touch it. Somebody might even taste it and it tastes like... You're literally bathing in shit. But at some point, after 2 or 3 days, people actually do convince themselves it's chocolate. It's shit. And that's what I think about Casemiro. Over the last few days since Liverpool, the sympathy votes have started to become more and more prevalent. He was fucking shit against... Embarrassing. Like, the worst... I think he got a 1 on the player ratings. He was absolute shite. And I don't care whether you're Roy Keane or Roy Cropper. There is no sympathy or blaming the system. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If he was an 18-year-old striker making his debut at holding midfield against Liverpool, I would blame the system. This is one of the most decorated holding midfielders in the game, who's on 350k a week, and he's 32, and we're meant to go, it's the system. Absolute bollocks. Nonsense. He's just not capable of doing that job anymore. And when Agate comes in, you'll see that somebody who can do the job. What we're talking about Casemiro is we need to change the system to accommodate a player that can't do the job we need him to do, which is completely wrong. You shouldn't be changing the system to accommodate Casemiro, but we have to now. So he can't do the job we want him to do. That's not a system problem. He just can't do it. Was hoping you'd answer the question yesterday on Twitter with your Q&A. Do you think you have another 10 years in you with the United stand system? I hope not. I hope not. That's probably not the answer, but I don't want to be doing this for another 10 years. I've not even been doing it for 10 years, so to double that just seems incredible to me. So no, I hopefully won't be doing it for another 10 years. I think it gets harder and harder every year. I love doing it. I really, really do. But there's just so many people copying it now. There's so many people doing it. You know, even the mainstream are copying it now. So it's just, I can't see myself doing this for another 10 years. I can see myself doing content for the next 10 years, but I can't see myself doing it like this. There's loads of ideas I've got, and I just think at the moment it's just... I mean, there's about 40 Man United channels now. When I started, there was 2 or 3. So it's just... And everybody's doing the same bloody thing. It's the same shows. It's the morning show. It's the afternoon show. It's the evening show. It's the watch along. It's the preview. And that's fine. Look, I know how hard the work is, and I know how hard these people work. But it's saturated. It's so saturated now. And I think when you're not doing something unique, it makes it difficult to stand out. And I love doing this. I'm not in no way, shape or form saying, well, I'm stopping, I'm leaving. But there needs look. I'll probably do it, but there needs to be a change. There needs to be a change in what we're doing, because I think fan content is losing its ground because it's becoming monotonous and boring, and everybody thinks they can do it. If Ineos backs Eric, then I back Ineos and Eric, says Grace Sheridan. Oh, I want to show you something actually. I'm working on something. I showed it you on the last stream, so I'm going to show it you now. Hopefully the audio is going to work. Let me know. Make sure you smash a like on the video, especially if you like the look of this. I've got some memberships to give away as well. So I'm working on this. It's getting better and better. I don't actually need the ball on. Let me know if you can hear me. So we're getting closer and closer towards what I want to do with this in a tactic sense. But this was something I was working on today in relation to Casemiro, actually. So let me have a look at... I won't be a minute with this. So Casemiro... Don't want to move. Hey, why is he there? I've got too many. See, this is what I mean. I need to mess around with it a little bit. But, yeah, this was sort of a... I'm working on a bit of a Liverpool setup here. So imagine the balls with Casemiro. The fullbacks for Manchester United instantly in that game sort of moved from this position into this position. And we've seen this a lot with United. I remember this happening against Wolves, where we almost end up with this weird front six. I definitely remember it happening against Wolves, the opening game of the season. And the ball was with Casemiro, and you're left with a 3. And then it's like, I never really understood in any of these scenarios how you're meant to get the ball from Casemiro into the front 6. But of course, as we saw with Liverpool, they just really closed in on Casemiro to the extent where... oh, this is a mess. I need to work on this. This is not how I had it set up before. Defense blue pivot. Move the blue pivot forward. Yeah, they moved beyond Mainu. Yeah, I need to work on it a little bit. But look, it will get there. It will get there. But that, actually, just going back to that, without inputting the press in, that's the problem with United's system at the moment in a screenshot. That is, Liverpool scored 2 goals from that situation. The Mainu goal and the first Casemiro goal was because everybody got ahead of the ball. Rashford's onside in this one, so you've got it wrong. You cheeky bastards. You cheeky bastards. Leave Rashford out of it. But, you know, it's hard to say what the plan is because we never really seem to utilise it. But we do have this weird thing of leaving Casemiro with the 2 centre-backs and everyone else bombing forward. If Ineos backs Eric, then I back Ineos and Eric, says Grace. Thoughts on Jamie Carragher's hatred for Ten Hag? He talks about him like a second-class citizen, and you can see he hates him when he talks about him, says Total Football. I don't think Jamie Carragher hates Eric Ten Hag. I think Jamie Carragher likes being right, like a lot of people. And I like being right. And I think Jamie Carragher, ever since he got excited in his white trainers on Monday Night Football and thought that he'd realised that there's big space in Man United's midfield, he just believes that Ten Hag should be sacked. And, you know, he wants to be right about that. There are people in our fan base who seem to be more focused on being right than actually what's best for Man United winning. Not they think what's best for United is for Ten Hag to get sacked, but I think they're so focused on being right that maybe they lose sight of the fact that we need to win games. Yeah, so I don't think Jamie Carragher actually hates Eric Ten Hag. Hi Mark, do you think if they get rid of Ten Hag, the options are Southgate or Rude? Not very exciting. Daniel, this is what I mean. Things can always get worse. I would take no joy in it if Ten Hag gets sacked and all the Ten Hag outers get their own way, and then we get Southgate. Apparently, apparently everybody who wants Ten Hag to stay is to blame. But if Ten Hag goes and we get Southgate, are we blaming Ten Hag outers? I mean, it's ridiculous. They're not appointing him, are they? But it could happen. Was hoping you'd answer done that one. It's not like building a plane. Would you fly at 60%? Says why not Jack? And agree with Keane's comments on Casemiro. Done that. Seeing a style of play takes time and players. Says this is Shalon. If Ten Hag gets sacked, it won't be due to a lack of effort on his end. It will be through a lack of patience. Joanna says I think Southgate is a great option. I think you're a prat, Joanna. I think you're worse, but I'll keep it as that. Oh, Zuteng's come back. What's more offensive, calling our underperforming manager a fraud, or you calling a 5 times Champions League winner Casemiro shit? Get a grip with yourself and don't be a hypocrite. It's completely not the same though, is it? Casemiro was shit at the weekend, and shit is a very tame word. Everybody uses the word shit. I watched the film last night, it was shit. You know, I would never say my dinner was shit because I'd get it all over my head, but it's not the same, mate. You're calling a manager a fraud. You need to look at the meaning of the word fraud. He's not a fraud. He's better than you'll ever be as a coach. He's better than I'll ever be as a coach. He can't be a fraud. It might not be good enough for you as a Man United manager, but he's not a fraud. You're misusing the word in an offensive way because you can't articulate yourself in a better way. When you write a bad article and people call it shite, you don't blame the pen or keyboard, you blame the brain. Casemiro's legs are gone for big games, says Akil. Big Steve says you've never been to Old Trafford, says Dex. I don't know who these people are. I don't know who they are. I mean, I don't want to be offensive, but I don't know who these people are. I presume they're bandwagon jumping content creators who followed the architects of this space like Robbie and me and Brian, and, you know, I presume he's just another gobby fan content creator like I was, but I don't know who it is, mate. So, you know, go and tell him I don't know who he is, and then he can gob off about me again, can't he? And he can say I don't go to Old Trafford and stuff like that. I mean, you're just wasting my time on some... I don't look down. There's no point. That's not being snobby. I just don't... What's the point in me talking about big or little Steve? I don't know anything about Steve. I don't really care. Mark, you have early retirement if Southgate's in, says Scott Page. I'm not retiring if Southgate gets in. I'll double my efforts. I'll have a bloody a crusade to run. I told you I'm never. If you support a football club, you don't turn your back on it. And in its hour of need, it's when it needs you the most. So I will just change the name from the United stand to the Southgate out stand. 100% Southgate out. ND says the trolls in the chat can get sent. Eric Ten Hag in. Well, man, I mean, I've got no problem with Ten Hag outers. It's part of... We're going to get Ten Hag outers. Abhijit says, but if the CDM can carry a ball a bit further and move it quickly, the gaps get smaller. But those gaps would increase if the CDM is immobile and slow. Thank you very much, Abhijit. I mean, just going back to that, by the way, the purpose of that is very relevant in how we get the best out of Bruno. I mean, when you look at that as a... And I'm not saying it's an average position, but we did see that on 2 of the goals where Delo and Mazraoui charge forward. And I know I've got Mazraoui at left back and Delo at right back. That's a mistake, but this is just a blueprint at the moment. But we do see this situation quite a lot where United go beyond the ball. If you imagine the balls with Casemiro, you're never going to get the best out of Bruno Fernandes in that situation. The way to get the best out of Bruno Fernandes is the way the blue team is set up, where Bruno Fernandes, if he's going to play high, he needs to have a pivot behind him. And that's what Liverpool did. That system like that, where the holding midfielder is left with the 2 centre-backs and the full-backs bomb on, it's chaos in Bruno's area. How's Bruno meant to get hold of the game in that situation where there's a front 4 with two full-backs bombing forward and Mainoo's there as well? It's like a 3-0-7, says top player. But the stupid thing is, people talk about a 4-2-4. I don't know what they're talking about, a 4-2-4. Like, I genuinely do see that shape quite a lot. 6 drops in between the centre-backs, 3, full-backs bomb forward, holding hands with the winger, and it almost becomes a 3-0-7. I've seen it so many times, and we saw it on Sunday. You're not going to get the best out of Bruno in that system. I don't think Bruno Fernandes necessarily starts for Liverpool, but if you put Bruno Fernandes in Szoboszlai's position, he's got a double pivot behind him, and he's working off Jota with a bit more freedom on the second layer of the midfield, which is where he should be. I really... Look, a double pivot would get the best out of Casemiro as well, because he'd have someone close to him. But I think the midfield is just wrong at the moment. I think Rez says, is it for pressing? It can be for pressing, but that was with the ball. We conceded 2 goals playing that system. You know, who are we pressing when we've got the ball? Casemiro had the ball on the first goal and everyone's bombed forward. So you can't press when you've got the ball, unless it's anticipation press. So look, I think getting the best out of Bruno is I think Mainu's position for Man United, you've almost got to be Mo Farah. Like, he's got to have, Ji-sung Park would struggle to do that role. It's just so much running. Casemiro can't do it because he's on his own. And I think Bruno drifts out of games because there's not a lot going on. I think if we want to get the best out of Bruno Fernandes, we need. I think we need a double pivot. I said that in the summer. I think we need a double pivot. I think we need an absolute beast midfielder, hopefully Agate, and we need somebody who can get their foot on the ball. Now, Zubimendi and Agate would have been ideal. Never going to happen. Mainu and Agate could work. But I do think in the short term, Agate and Casemiro might work. I mean, Casemiro, when he's switched on, can actually pass. We've seen that before. So I think we need a double pivot and Bruno in the 10. Because it's the midfield is all over the place at the moment. DJ says, you've never been to Old Trafford, who cares? Mate, I actually have been to Old Trafford a lot. There is even videos of me at Old Trafford and pictures of me at Old Trafford. So I've been to Old Trafford a lot. If you read my book, and thanks everyone who is buying the book, Mark Goldbridge, Football According to Mark Goldbridge, get in. There is a section in that about my very first trip to Old Trafford in 1989. And I was very, very lucky, actually. It's a true story. And I may never have been seen again on my first trip because I was about 8 or 9 years of age. And I got lost. It's a true story in the book. I got lost. Yeah, I've been to Old Trafford loads. I mean, I'm not a season ticket holder by any means anymore, but I used to go on average 3 to 5 times a season, especially in the early noughties. And but I haven't been for a long time. I'll say that. But yeah, look, I've never been sent. Talking about books, I've never been sent a copy of the how to be a proper fan of Man United, because I'd love to know what the tick list is. But yeah, I think those people who attack people as not proper fans are very insecure themselves. And there's a life lesson for you. The people who scrutinise and watch other people and try and take them down and cancel them and criticise them are generally unhappy themselves. As I said, I don't know who this guy was who said it. I wouldn't even know where to find him. If somebody was in a pub and they were quite big, that might be him. But I don't know who these people are. I don't know where you find them. And I'm certainly not spending my time watching, listening, or getting involved with them. And yet, I feel like Chesney Hawks. And yet, you try to make me forget. And yet, they certainly are watching us. They're certainly watching us. People are saying Simon fair play. Is there a comment from Simon that I've missed? I don't know about that. Mark, not saying we should get him, but Southgate would remove the top. Oh, Jack, shut up. Don't waste my time talking about Southgate. All I'll say, Jack, is if you want Southgate and you want to give him a chance, that's absolutely fine. But never, ever, ever come on the United stand when he's manager and try and talk me down. I am not getting down off that. Lee says, it's Toxic Sunday, come early, mate. You need a Pratt in the Chat weekly award. Keep doing what you're doing. Love the show and the signed book. Well, I've put the book link for you there. Scan the QR code and order yours now. Christmas ain't going to be coming that far away, but it is available as an Audible book as well. Bashing of foreign fans is noted in xenophobia, says Gog. Well, we've certainly never bashed foreign fans on here, so I hope you're not referring to us. I don't see geography in football fans anyway. My granddad supported Manchester United as a young lad because of as a young man, sorry, because of the Busby Babes. A lot of people did the same. A lot of people started supporting Manchester United because of the tragedy, but my granddad and a lot of other people started supporting Manchester United because of what Sir Matt Busby was doing 3 or 4 years before that, winning the league with a bunch of kids from all around the country. Sir Bobby Charlton from the northeast, Duncan Edwards from Wolverhampton, Dudley. So this Manchester bollocks about you can only be a real fan if you're from Manchester or England or whatever is just complete and utter horseshit. This was going on in the 50s. People outside of Manchester supporting Manchester United. Yeah, it's a nonsense. Don't ever feel that anybody can tell you that you're not a real fan. I'm tired of the discussion. I personally lost confidence in him, but if Ten Hag performs, then let him stay, says Andre. Neither out nor in. Just want my club to do well regardless of the manager. Thank you very much, Andre. I'll tell you what, with all due respect, says SK, it really annoys me how you always read out chats from obvious trolls. They clearly just want to get a reaction from you. We love you, says SK. It was a super chat. I probably should ignore them, but I try to read them all. It's just like the Oasis thing now. You're wrong for buying tickets because you've not seen them live 50 times. Epic pathetic, says Gaz. Yeah, I did tweet that out. You know, I was joking. I just want to make that very clear that sarcasm should be my middle name. My kids want to go and see Oasis. They weren't even born by a long way when Oasis were good. And they do like Wonderwall. And as an Oasis fan, I don't like that type of fan because I feel I'm a big Oasis fan because they were so important to me when I was growing up. But, you know, that's why the tickets are selling out. So many people are into it. And I know, you know, look, I think there's a big positive for the next generation to get into that sort of music. Hopefully next summer we'll see a lot of people with longer hair, not going down the gym anymore, wearing Adidas Gazelles, drinking lager. It could, you know, because to be honest, most lads these days, it's all about how many times they've been down the gym, how big the biceps are, you know, how many pints of water they've had. Oasis, let's see. Anyway, there was something else I want. Oh, I was going to talk about Antony, actually. I've still got time. Have I got time? I don't know. Just wanted to say about Antony. I do think that, look, I shouldn't have said it really, but I will do anyway. I saw a clip today from a certain radio station and they just never shut up about Antony. They never shut up about him. And it was basically saying he's the worst ever signing ever. And I just like, I just was like, he didn't play against Liverpool. Why are we talking about Antony? Like, I'm the first to admit he's been a bad signing, but it's like the default. There is something with Antony in the British media that goes beyond football scrutiny. There is a genuine dislike, in my prediction and opinion. There always has been, ever since virtually his debut, when he did the fidget spin. And that was like the lighter to the touch flame, where most of our pundits decided they hated Antony. And I don't know. Is he just dislikable? I don't really have a theory on it. But his treatment and obsession in our media is incredible. He didn't even play on Sunday. He is our fourth choice winger. What? I've never seen that happen before. I know he cost £80 million, but Jadon Sancho cost £75 million. I don't remember anybody talking about Jadon Sancho consistently last season when he refused to play. So I just think it's... and somebody was saying, well, you're a hypocrite. You're always slagging Rashford off. I'm not. That's just sad little haters on Twitter who don't like the United stand. Like, anybody who watches the United stand knows I don't spend my time saying Rashford shit. I can't stand Rashford. I hate Rashford. I don't do that. We do talk about Rashford as much as we talk about any other player, but as I've said many times, the solution for Man United is for Marcus Rashford to play well. But I'm not going to say he is playing well. But the Antony thing, I just find it really odd how he always gets mentioned, and he's always the worst ever player. And I think it just comes from a place of vindictiveness. And the reason I wanted to mention it is because I think you get a lot of scrutiny as a football fan and you almost get made to feel guilty for saying a player's not very good. And yet, I'm doing it again, Chesney Hawks, and yet our actual media can quite obviously just go for a player that they genuinely don't like consistently all the time. I mean, Paul Pogba had it, didn't he, as well? But I just think with Antony, I don't get the obsession. Like, okay, he's probably going to end up being a flop. He won't be the first flop. Alexis Sanchez was an absolute firehouse flop. Jadon Sancho's a flop. They both cost a hell of a lot of money, I don't know what's going to happen with Antony, but I don't really see why there is just such an obsession and almost disdain for him. It's unhealthy. It's an unhealthy thing. I would love it if you could take a break from a watch along and take Seb to a game at Old Trafford. It would be momentous to cherish forever, says Ewan. I'm already, it's going to happen. Don't worry about that. For a supposed Man United winger, he's way off mark. There's no turn out to be. He is already atrocious, says Ute. Yeah, but why is it all right to give Antony abuse, but it's not all right to criticise other players? That's my whole point. I'm not talking about you. Anyway, what you say, you can say with freedom as a Manchester United fan. I'm just saying it's another media criticism for me. Like, they're obsessed with Antony. He didn't even play on Sunday, and they're talking about him, writing about him. And there are far more players to talk about at Man United who actually are shit and not playing very well at the moment. But yeah, maybe some of you missed the point. Maybe I shouldn't have even mentioned it. Anyway, on the poll, do you think Tuchel really did snub us? 43% say yes, 57% of you say no. Do you think Antony will turn it around? No, but like David says, Antony is the least of our problems. I don't see Antony. This is what I mean. I don't see Antony as, this is how low down he is as a priority for me. I don't see him as a solution. I don't see him as a problem. I don't see him. He's irrelevant to me. And therefore, I don't need to talk about him. He probably is going to be a flop. I hope not. I was very excited. But I don't feel the need to start calling him the worst signing ever. Or it's the vendetta. It's the vindictiveness. I don't really care. Like, we've had many other flops before that I just don't think about. He's fourth choice winger. Ahmad and Garnacho are ahead of him, and so is Rashford. So to me, it's just like, he's a backup winger. I don't see, and I think that's the way Ten Hag sees him now as well. Yeah. Our keeper's more of a problem, says Paul. Well, effectively, he probably is. But I'm so glad that, you know, with that previous chat where somebody said, don't feed the trolls. Literally just had a super chat from somebody who's been at it all week. Didn't acknowledge it. Just completely got rid of them. So well done to that person who said before, it annoys me that you read them. There, I just got rid of it. Shaw makes Rashford better. Maybe Mazraoui makes Antony better, says Scott. No player should make any player better consistently. If you need another player to play well, then you shouldn't be playing for Man United. I mean, again, it's a bit like Casemiro. It's not Casemiro's fault he's shit. He needs the system to make him better. I think we can play a system that makes him better. It's a bit like saying Harry Maguire's not a problem. We just need to play a low block with a compact counter-attacking team. Well, yeah, Maguire will play well in that. But what if we want to play a high line? You'll get exposed. So he's not really, the problem is Maguire. As much as the problem is Casemiro if we want to play the way we're playing. But we can change the system and be more secure with him. But I don't agree that a player's shit unless you play them with a certain player. That's a really bad situation for that said player. What's the point in excitement in Yoro coming back when Ten Hag ain't playing him for at least a month, if not more, when we need players on the pitch, says DP. Would you replace Rashford if he left, says Bronx? I think Man United want a winger. Regardless of what happens with any of our current wingers, I think Man United want a winger, definitely. How is McSauce doing? Well, he won't have played a game yet because it's the international break, nutty. And I think it's the fee we spent on Antony versus the outcome. No other player other than Maguire is comparable on this. I don't think Jadon Sancho's done well in a Man United shirt, mate. I know it feels like he did, but I don't think Jadon Sancho's done that well in a Man United shirt over 3 years. I mean, when you compare Antony to Sancho, every part of me thinks Sancho's got a better record, but I don't think there is a lot between Sancho and Antony, actually. And that's incredible, because I think Sancho's a better player, but I don't think there is. Which signing was worse, Sancho or Antony, says Nomad? Well, everyone will say Antony because Sancho FC is part of Ten Hag Out FC, isn't it? But that's a joke. Well, it's not a joke for some of you, but, you know, I am joking. I'd have to, you know what? I'd have to go and dig on that one and mention it on another show. I'd want to have a look at the stats and the goals and the assists. I presume Sancho's got a better record than Antony, but it's not overwhelming. That's the point. And also, as DP says, well, what about Sancho's attitude? refusing to play, etc., does that not make him a worse signing? I don't know. Ayush says, you just made me realise why I love this show with that Antony point. There is a bandwagon to earn attention, bringing Antony into the conversation. Well, you've nailed it better than me, Ayush. I just don't understand why I'm seeing clips about Antony in the mainstream or articles in the mainstream about Antony. I read one today in the Manchester Evening News. Roy Keane has had his say about Antony. I stupidly clicked it. You know what it was? On the overlap in the summer, Roy Keane was asked about 10 players that need to leave Manchester United. Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, Casemiro and Antony was in it. The article reads, Roy Keane's had his say on Antony. It's an overlap video about 10 other players, and it's 5 days after we lost to Liverpool when Antony didn't play. And that's what I mean. It's the agenda around Antony that just is weird in the mainstream because they don't like him. I don't think it's anything to do with his ability. I just don't think they like him. But you know what? Whatever. Anyway, take care, everyone. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Oh, no, don't go anywhere. Well, do go if you want to go, but you won't get free memberships. I've got 10 memberships to give away. I completely bloody forgot. Bloody prat. Right, let's do this. Where are you? Let's be having you. There we go. Membership gifting. Gift 5 now. Got another 5 to give. Where are you? I'd be gutted if I hadn't done that. What's this? There we go. Right, they should be out now. I don't know. I'm only gifting the memberships. I didn't write the message there. I don't know who's wrote that on the United Stand admin. But, I mean, I'm not saying they're wrong, but I didn't write that message about that. Basically, United Stand just says, I'm so sexy. I mean, I don't know who that is. It could be me. There we go. Right, thanks everyone for watching. We're back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock with the morning show. And tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Oh, I've got an England watch along tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So if you fancy a bit of football. England against Ireland tomorrow in Dublin. So watch along on That's Football. Take care, everyone. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. And I will speak to you later. Thanks very much for the show tonight. Really enjoyed it. Hardcore legends on the international break. Pat yourself on the back. You are the hardcore ultras. Speak to you in a bit.